All right, so I was told tonight that we are competing with Game 7 tonight, so we better make this an awesome panel, and that's what we're gonna do. So, to welcome all of you, the context for this Head of Demand Gen panel, to be honest, is very selfish. So as John mentioned, as enterprise VCs here in New York City, the number one pain point that we've been hearing from all of our Series A enterprise startups has been around marketing, right? So I'm curious, show of hands, how many of you in the room have struggled, currently struggle, will struggle with this challenge? Yeah, can I get a hell yeah? So we went out tonight to say, okay, could we, one, identify and bring together some of the top demand gen leaders here in New York City tonight? So check. Two, could we dig into their brains and get some of the most tactical and practical tips around demand gen? And then three, can each of you walk away with at least 2 net new playbook pages to bring back to your teams tomorrow? How's that sound? Everyone's like, all right. Well, we're going to shake this up. We're going to make this really fast moving. So this wouldn't be a true workbench panel without our signature icebreaker. So I've already teed up our panelists. Our icebreaker tonight is, if you were not doing what you're doing in demand gen, what would you do? So going down the line, first and foremost, we have Jonah Buckman, who is manager of revenue marketing at SciSense. You've done everything from managing SDR teams, field marketing, ABM, and now revenue marketing. So what would you do if you were not doing revenue marketing?
I would be living on a beach in Thailand.
It's a good one. Next up, Halpern, director of marketing at Chartbeat, and you're previously at Nexus as well, and doing marketing.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a formal.
Oh, so I think we might turn all these off.
Testing. So I don't know if there's a formal title for this job, but I heard once that there is a role where you can just be responsible for bringing puppies to sick patients, which sounds like a dream job, not because I am a good person, but because I love puppies and I'm just too scared to take the plunge and get one for myself.
Yeah, Orly and I, fun fact, actually met at a conference last year called SaaStr, and they actually had a puppy playpen at this conference. So it's very fitting.
Yeah.
And last but not least, Dimas Marta Geronimo, who's a senior revenue operations lead at Catalyst, which is a workbench portfolio company. We're so excited to have you. You were previously at BounceX as a demand gen manager and director of marketing ops. And now at Catalyst, we will love to talk a little bit more about what RevOps means, right? Now more and more encompassing sales, marketing, and customer success. But what would you do, Dimas, if you weren't Catalyst?
Yeah, great segue, because this year recently started fostering. And yeah, if I wasn't working, I'd probably run a rescue or something like that. Yeah, I mean, no discrimination, but probably puppies and dogs.
Nice. Awesome. Well, with that, I'm
now
just gonna
I feel like the most selfish person.
bring a puppy to a beach in
You could have put
Thailand.
me third, yeah. I would have changed.
Sorry.
All right, and the last thing I'll just call out too, why I'm really psyched about this panel, is that we have 3 very different platforms, right, selling to different buyer bases. So SciSense as a BI tool, Chartbeat as a content analytics for digital publishing, and Catalyst as a customer success platform. So we're just gonna kick off. I'm gonna keep the questions really short because I know a lot of folks have questions as well. But if we were to go through the entire life cycle and start from the top, when you each joined your respective companies to own demand gen, there's probably already some marketing in place-ish, right? You come in and they've definitely tried to do some demand gen. I'm curious what you think is the biggest mistake early stage startups make when they approach demand gen.
Starting on this end?
Just jump in.
Cool. So when Tristan said Looker, Tableau, or whatever, we're the whatever. But we are the leading cloud native BI platform. We didn't come here to talk about BI though. We've talked about marketing. And I think there's, just before jumping into the question, I think there's 4 kind of themes that in terms of transition that we're seeing within marketing. I hope the other marketers here would agree. And that my company is definitely very much caught up in this journey. One is from lead-centric to being account-centric. One is from being focused specifically on lead creation to being focused on full sales cycle as a marketing org. The third is being digital only to moving towards a healthy mix of online and offline. I think the biggest trend that we're seeing and that we're a part of is marketing and sales moving from the conversation around handoffs to moving to a conversation around partnership. And so to answer the question around biggest mistake, I think a lot of organizations, we did as well, skipped a conversation about what is our ICP or ideal client profile, which really affects the mix of demand gen programs you're going to build. I think there's a rush to jump to execution, and there's also a rush to say, we'll sell to anyone that will buy from us, which is okay. And the ICP that you set isn't forever. I think you should revisit it every few months, at least in the beginning, and see if it still makes sense. But what that ICP will do, defining what are the characteristics of your best fit prospects and customers, will help you define what are the best programs that you should build in order to go after them, which is very different if you're going after an enterprise audience or an SMB audience and so forth.
Yeah, it's so helpful to hear that you should revisit it, right? Because I think a lot of people set out and said, this is my ICP, when in fact, yeah, it depends if you go up market, down market, right? It all changes.
Yeah, I could not agree with that more. From a slightly different vantage point, when I first started the demand gen function that I'm currently running, I think something I suffered from and still sometimes struggle with was what I would call demand gen FOMO, right? It's really easy to get swept up in the zeitgeist of the demand gen tactic of the week, right? There are so many acronyms and vendors and partners that you can think about taking on, right? And there's this pressure to feel like you need to do them all to keep up with the Joneses of what your competitors are doing and so on and so forth. I think sometimes we forget that each one of those tactics comes with a cost, right? Not necessarily a financial investment. It might be you need to connect softwares in a really sophisticated way, you're not ready. You might need a fleet of SDRs to support that initiative, right? So it's really important anytime you're exploring one of those many strategies that are out there in the ecosystem to relate it back to where you guys are, what stage you're at, where your company is, what your needs are, and how your resources are stacked up to support that strategy.
Do you wish you had done more programs or less programs, right? And this is actually one of my questions later, because there's just so much within demand gen.
Yeah, definitely fewer. I would say start small, see if you can nail one, and then move on to others. If you try and do them all at the same time, I'm sure unless you are stellar, which I have not reached the level of, you will not be able to tackle any of them.
Yeah, just to add on to that, I think doing too much too fast as soon as you are building out your demand gen team and your function and all those programs, that's where you are doomed to fail. And I think a lot of people, similar to what you're saying, or in a lot of companies, try to copy what their competitors are doing, try to copy what they're reading in blogs and saying like, okay, if this is working really well for this company, I should try it out. And they're trying 100 million other programs on top of that, which could work out, but I think when you're first starting out, you should focus on what actually works well for you and double down on that before moving into 10 other different, marketing programs, different marketing channels.
Yeah, and so we hear a lot about, again, programs. So I mean, there's everything from content, events, webinars, managing SDRs. I mean, we can keep talking. I'd love to actually hear some specifics to the extent that you guys can share some campaigns. I'd be curious, what's maybe one campaign that actually has been very successful, and why do you think it was successful? And also one campaign that didn't go as well as you thought, and what do you think was the reason for that? Just to put some specifics around what a demand gen, program actually could look like.
Yeah, I can jump in on this one. So, and I won't name a specific campaign, but more a category of campaigns. So I think this works well for us. So for us, events is huge. So events comprise probably 30% of demand for us across the entirety of our book, right? And that's because we are a 60-person company servicing 600 global enterprise organizations. And short of having every one of our account managers on the road 800 days a year, which is actually impossible, right? We need to have as much high impact, as much breadth in as little time as possible. So events have been amazing in terms of campaigns to create awareness about who we are, to connect with prospects we'd never get in our office on any regular day, and to actually bring through some other functions throughout the organization, whether it's product launches, right, or actually existing customer engagement, all in a super short, high impact period of time. So for us, it's incredibly efficient. What hasn't worked for us?
And those events, are those conferences or industry? Okay.
Great question. So they're industry events for the most part. So as Jess already mentioned, we work with publishers. So for us, they are trade organization hosted events that we sponsor, have different activations, try to position our thought leadership on the main stage at, have booths, the tried and true trade shows sometimes. And because we have a smaller market, you really get high penetration of that market if you do it right. In terms of what hasn't gone as well that I really had high hopes for, the world of swag and demand gen is in my history. There are so many wonderful vendors that show you really attractive case studies about how much yield you can get. We got zero response. So I think just to Dimas's earlier point about slowly test something before you go all in and see if it's right for you and for your prospect before, again, you go all in and then have a lot more pain to deal with and a lot more numbers to explain to your higher ups.
Have folks had good luck with swag drops? No. Okay.
You learned earlier than I.
Yeah, swag is always hard for us too. We paired direct mail, and I'm saying we, in my previous experience at BounceX, I'm only about a month in at Catalyst, so still learning and building out new things there. But in terms of things that worked really well for us at BounceX, and the thing is, something to know is that what will work well will change as your business evolves, as you move up market, as your customer profile changes. When I first started inbound, we barely had a demand gen function built out and a marketing team built out, but inbound was a huge driver of leads for our sales team, and that was just a byproduct of our product and platform. BounceX patented exit intent technology, so whenever you left the website, you'd get a little pop-up saying, give us your email address for 10% off. On the bottom left corner is a little link that says Powered by Bounce Exchange. Everybody would want to click there, they go to our site, and they'd want to learn more about our product. And that was a big driver of traffic and leads for us in the early days.
Just from your site?
Yeah, just from our site. And even and from that, so building out process, like my first year at BounceX was just optimizing that entire channel. It's leads that we already have, but how do we, get better value out of it? How do we get more opportunities out of it? And then as we grew and scaled up, our best marketing channels started becoming events. More specifically, these like executive summits and dinners that we would host. So less conferences, but more curated events where we would do, road shows in different cities, invite prospects, clients, and just get them in a room together talking and like skill sharing new ideas. And something that didn't work for us was paid media, like Google ad campaigns. Branded worked really well for us, but there's not a lot of people out there searching for enterprise triggered email vendor.
Vendor.
Yeah.
Awesome. Jonah?
So I'll take the opposite angle, and I'll say that actually our most successful campaigns thus far have been direct mail kits.
Nice.
And we've had a lot of success with them, although we only started them this year. And we found that it's a wonderful opportunity to differentiate ourselves, not just from a product perspective, but from a marketing perspective. And I'll give you an example. We sent around March Madness. This was actually the first mail kit we sent, but we created a box that had a branded basketball hoop and balls, and it had chocolate-covered basketballs for the office, and it had all kinds of snacks. And then the CTA, the call to action, actually drove them to a landing page on our website, which helped them pick their March Madness bracket using our BI tool.
Wow.
It was right there embedded as an iframe.
That's pretty cool.
We had built this dashboard. We pulled together 30 years of NCAA basketball data, and we let them use our product to actually build better March Madness brackets. And then we also ran a raffle, and we had over 200 people join our raffle, give us their email addresses to do so. And these were all in targeted accounts of ours that mattered to us. So that was the first time we did this. And I think what I get a lot of direct mail pieces, and I think what I find to be good ones is really two items. One is personalized, and so it takes more effort, but we actually include handwritten notes from the sales rep in the box. It's right there on top, it's signed by them. We've done photos of the team right in there, signed.
Oh, I love that.
And it's very hard to ignore that. The second thing that we find to be super successful in, well, I can only remember one right now.
Okay.
But it's the personalization of it. It really makes a lot of sense. Where we haven't had so much success is in marketing top funnel webinars through display advertising. We've come with the assumption that if we provide really top funnel thought leadership type content, people who don't know us yet will be interested in joining a webinar to learn about that. But webinars have forms, and there's such a rejection of forms for the most part that we'll spend a lot of money on promoting webinars and have very little signups. So it's a lesson about forms.
That's really interesting, yeah, because webinars, I think, is still so much the currency, at least within enterprise, right? It's like everyone, we even were surprised at Workbench. We've hosted webinars, and a lot of people sign up for them and actually attend. And so it's just one of those things that, I think what might surprise you in enterprise software might sometimes still work, but I think it depends on the format and the channel, right, that you're saying. I know we've talked about just a few different of these ideas. I'm curious how you coordinate them all, right, and the juggling of them. And I guess the real question here, too, is once you get these campaigns in motion, how do you know when it's working or you just need to give it more time? When do you think, okay, I need to optimize and tweak certain variables, or this isn't working, I need to cut it, right? Because some of these things take time to really play out a little bit.
I can jump in on that one too. And I'll focus on the last part of the question.
Sure.
There was a lot in there. So in terms of how to know when you should maybe admit defeat, right? Am I understanding correctly? So I think the first point of that is it's okay to admit defeat, right? I think you just heard really different perspectives on tactics, right? What works for me doesn't work for Jonah, what works for Jonah doesn't work for me, right? So you have to know what you're trying to accomplish and who you're trying to accomplish it with and tailor your strategy to that person. I know it sounds very cliche and obvious, but that is so key to remember, right? So to actually answer the question now, I think for us, at the end of the day, ROI is the best metric to determine that. If what you're getting out of it is not what you're putting into it, matching or greater, that is a bad sign. To your question about how long to let it ride, because sometimes you need to incur some costs before you get maximized returns, you need to know what resources you have available and how long you can actually take that gamble and do the number analysis for yourself, right? And I think a lot of what we talked about earlier, calculated risks, right? And starting with small testing to get a feel for whether that strategy is going to work before you have to get to the point where you say, oh my gosh, is this actually going to pay off, or am I going to have to cut other costs somewhere else to kind of get back to where I started? It's helpful for us to think through those decisions.
Would you say a quarter, 3/4? I mean, if we were just to do ballpark.
Yeah, I mean, we try and give things at least a quarter to ride out, but depending on the strategy, some might be longer term games.
Curious how you guys set up the structure of your demand gen teams, right? Because that's part of it too, is the coordination of it. Do you have someone owning just field marketing, right? And then also coordinating with someone on AdWords and so forth, Jonah?
Yeah, and so my thought came back to me. So to finish my last answer about
Yes.
direct mail, the other aspect that works, that makes it successful is the follow-up. And so that's why it has to be super coordinated with your sales or your BDRs or SDRs, because even with this successful campaign we did, very few people wrote us to say thank you for your gifts, right? But when we get the tracking number and we wait 24 hours and then we send an email that said, did you get my box? We get super high response rate to that, over 50%. Even if it's no thank you, it's thanks for the gift, no thank you. And so that's where the coordination comes in with sales. In terms of how we set up our demand gen, and we're going through a major reorganization this year as we have transitioned to better align with our sales org, in line with sort of those themes I started with, moving from lead-centric to account-centric and so forth. What we have today is we have regional marketing managers, I'm one of them, responsibility for 4 areas: account-based marketing, field marketing, customer revenue marketing, and demand generation. And we work on a kind of I don't want to call it a services model, but a partnership model with a digital team that provides media, provides website, with a creative team that provides design, and so on and so forth. And so ultimately, the marketing manager becomes responsible for partnering closely with sales, with BDR, with customer success, with understanding what in that specific region matters, right? What are the things that sales organization is trying to achieve? And then building campaigns in partnership with them that can help them deliver those goals. So it's kind of a generalist, right, my role, knowing a little bit about the different parts of marketing within the organization, being able to jump in where needed. But it's really one of seeing the bigger picture, pulling people together, cross-organizational alignment, campaign planning, this kind of thing. And so this is really what drives our demand gen team right now. It's a new structure for us. We're just learning.
What did you do before?
We had, and this is historical, so Sisense started, when I started 5 years ago, we were 70 people in one office in Tel Aviv, which is where I started. So we are over 800 people globally today. And so the organization has grown very, very fast. And historically, when we got our start, we were in that place of, we'll sell to anyone that will buy to us, right? Whether it was our neighbor, which became the case study that we cited all the time, it was Wix, right? So we got their name. I think we gave it to them for free or $50 or something. So whoever will buy from us.
Yeah.
And we started with a very strong program of display advertising, bringing people to the website, form fill, SDR conversion, handoff to sales, and so on and so forth. So sort of that traditional pyramid. And because that's how we grew up, as the organization kept growing and doubling on a yearly basis, we kept putting more and more money into that engine. And we thought we would keep getting more and more results. And we did for a while until growth slowed, because you can only take it so far. And so before we got to where we are today, that digital team that ran media was really our whole demand gen organization. And it was so strong and so successful in what it did that didn't allow us to develop things like direct mail, things like field events, things that could help us get in front of the accounts that matter to us and not just in front of the world, right? So that's what we've transitioned out of. It hasn't been easy. It's a big struggle. You're talking about culture change and a lot of other things, but that's how we've come about.
Awesome, that's so helpful. Okay, we have to touch on tools, right? Because that's, I feel like, part of the hype is that there's tools that help you build great demand gen teams. So if we could go down the line really quickly and talk about maybe the most helpful tool or platform you've used, and maybe one that hasn't lived up to the hype. I don't want to be negative, but if we're going to be sharing here. Dimas, you want to kick off?
Yeah, so for us, tools are really important, but similarly to kind of working as a demand gen team with your marketing team and your sales team, tools to me are only as important as how you actually plan to use them. You can't expect a tool that you buy or a piece of software that you buy to do anything, like do everything and solve your problem. For us, we at BounceX, when I was there, we were trying to launch account-based marketing for 3 years before we actually got it up and running the right way. And Terminus is one of the tools that we brought on to do that, and it was one of my favorite tools to use, and still one of my favorite tools. But again, it required having alignment with, account-based marketing requires alignment with everyone in marketing, everyone in sales, everyone in customer success. And while Terminus was really helpful for that, we couldn't use it well until we actually got all that in place internally. In terms of something that didn't work out well for us, in my previous role was a company called Sendou. They do direct mail. And I do think the biggest reason why that didn't work out well for us was because we didn't have a full plan going into what we were trying to do with that. Ironically enough, it's something we're evaluating them at Catalyst now, because we do actually know what we want to do with them. So.
Yeah, I'll give a flip side example to Sendou, because one of our other companies here in New York City called VTS has used them really successfully. And this is one playbook page that I've shared, which is, they realized that they were setting up a lot of demo calls with SDRs. But what was happening was these prospects, roughly 30 minutes before, would drop out, right? I mean, if you have to hop on a demo call, it's like, I don't want to do it. So they used Sendou to send each of these potential prospects a $5 Starbucks gift card, something super small, but right before the demo call, right? And they found that as a result, prospects would get on the call and be really happy and really thankful and say, thank you so much. And the other, I think the interesting trick here is that with Sendou at least, if this prospect doesn't redeem the card, it goes back to your account. And most people don't redeem these gift cards, right? So anyways, it's just a little hack and trick. These are the types of things that we are constantly learning and picking up. Anything else from you two?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely encountered all of the tools mentioned. So I think, like, it's a very small world, but there are a lot of players in it, and we misuse Sendou. So I think I would definitely go back with that tactic.
Yeah.
This is a little bit outside of the scope of demand gen specifically, but if you don't nail this, I think all of your other tools won't necessarily serve you right. I mean, I am the biggest fan of Salesforce, and essentially architecting your Salesforce to support an attribution model for whatever ultimately you deploy. I think data is king, and in the world of demand gen, if you don't have data and understand like what is happening, why it's happening, you will not know how to take action to make it better in the future. So for me, Salesforce is really the best thing ever. And just to, I think, double down on what Dima said about, it's not just about the tools, about your ability to use it, right? So we've been using HubSpot for about 3 years. It's a fine email automation platform. We hadn't been using probably 5% of what it can actually do.
Yeah.
And we've only recently started tapping into how it can help, automate prompts when people are visiting our blog, or do many other things to orient it much more towards demand gen specifically. So I would just also think about that. You might be using tools at half capacity, right? And there may be ways you can actually get more out of them without paying more.
Yeah, so I recently had to map our technology, so I have that available. If anyone wants to reach out to me, I'm happy to share with
Everyone's
you
gonna
my
hit up
slide.
Jonah, yes,
I spent a lot of
please.
time on it, so I'm happy to share. My view on technology is it's for operational efficiencies, it's for scaling, and what Dima said right now, everybody said to us when we started trying to do ABM about 1.5 years ago, and we were so persuaded by the vendors that we made investments, not cheap investments, in ABM vendors early on, and then spent 1 year not using them because we didn't have good organizational alignment. And it would take us multiple months to get a campaign launched because of organizational alignment reasons. So our main platform today is 6 Sense, and I'm happy to talk technology forever. I love it, but use it as an opportunity to scale, create efficiencies. For example, I have a good relationship with Sendou and PFL. I talk to them regularly. They send me a lot of stuff. I don't mind it, but we continue to do our direct mail pieces ourselves because we're not yet at a point of needing to scale that, right? We can still do it ourselves, and we're nailing down our strategy, and we're nailing down how we want to use it. Once we can't do it anymore, that's when I would make the investment. And even when it comes to display advertising, you can do account-based display advertising on LinkedIn. You can make an account list, you can make a contact list, and that is account-based advertising. You don't need a demand base or a Terminus or a Triblio or a 6 Sense to do that. Anyways, that's my view on technology.
I love it. All right, let's open up for questions. Some fast, lightning questions. Yes, sir.
ABM, there's a lot of discussions about ABM, and I haven't yet heard something like a solid plan for ABM. What do you need to do to do account-based marketing well?
Solid plan for doing account-based marketing well. Might need a follow-up panel
30
after
seconds.
this.
In short, I don't think ABM is for every company. I think there's iterations of it, but I do think ABM works really well for companies that have high touch, high value clients where you can invest a lot of money into getting them, like earning their money as a customer, right? If you are high use, like low touch, low ACV, like user can sign up for your product without a credit card kind of thing, I don't think it really works well. So that's kind of my quick answer on how to make, like, is it an actual fit for your clients?
I'm asking about what do you do to make ABM work?
Yeah, so, sorry, just quick call alignment. So for us, big playbook was we had a account list of 100 accounts. We targeted them on Terminus. We then worked with our SDRs to make sure that they were doing outreach to them. We would see if any of those accounts were going to any of the conferences that we were going to or attending or sponsoring. If we were going to do a roadshow there, we would also invite them to a dinner, and we would also do direct mail. So it's a mix of every different marketing channel, but in short, that's like how we would do it.
Awesome.
So
Oh.
I would answer that question
Yeah.
if I can.
Jump in.
So in 30 seconds, define an ICP. Who is it that you want to be going after? Number 2, create a list of accounts that you want to be targeting. Align on that list with your sales organization, marketing, customer success. Get everybody on board, including your executive, so there's agreement on what that list is. It can be 50 accounts, it can be 100, it can be 2,000, it can be 5,000. It's all forms of ABM. Now you got your list, that's the basic. right? You got your list, this target list. Then the rest of it is programs and tactics. So do you want to do direct mail? Do you want to do display advertising? Do you want to do field events? These are your offers. These are your programs. Tactics, how are you going to deliver them? How are you going to get people there? You're going to do a sales outreach campaign. You're going to do display advertising campaign. But you're targeting these accounts and measuring them against the account, right? So the measurement looks something like, we went after 100 accounts. How many of those accounts turned into pipeline? Not just how much pipeline, but what percentage of those accounts, and so forth. So it's a measurement back to the accounts. And that's account-based marketing. I mean, in its most simple sense.
That was awesome. That was a great, can we clap it up for Jonah? That was a very impressive 30-second. Marie.
Hi, thanks so much for the panel. I'm Marie from Cara Marketing Production Software. You mentioned that it's important to have a good orchestra of marketing, sales, demand gen, customer success. I'm curious to hear the ratio of people to see, how many people go against certain things so that the effort of the campaigns actually work and the handover positions are smooth.
Yeah, marketing is traditionally underfunded, especially in a growth organization that puts values more sales heads. I think you need to be very careful that you have marketers in place that can provide them with the programs that they need in order to deliver there. From an SDR to an AE perspective, we do a 2-to-1 ratio today. So 2 AEs supported by 1 SDR. There are companies that do that very differently. We've done different things in the past. It's really what makes sense for you. And even more importantly, how many accounts are on their list, right? So how many accounts can a team actively go after within a year's time?
Oh my goodness. Yes, sir. Say it one more time. Should startups make use of Google AdWords? Let's go down the line, one-word answers.
Depends.
Nice.
Yeah, I would say depends too, but I'm happy to elaborate on why.
Yes, Arleo, how
So
would you elaborate?
I think it's less about what stage you're in, right? It's more about what can anchor your success. So with Google Ads, a lot of it depends on relevancy, and Google defines relevancy based on essentially like how much content you have in the ecosystem that validates what you're trying to get on people's radar, right? So if you're betting on a keyword that is, Orly's outfit today, right? If you don't have content that supports that you know what you're talking about, what I'm wearing, and have multiple kind of stakes in the ground, it's hard to get any results no matter how much money you put into it. So if you guys have insane amounts of content that's well situated and maybe some link backs or backlinks, you probably have a good chance of being successful, and you might not have to pay as much to do it as even an enterprise company if they don't have that content out there. So I think that's one dependency.
All right, last question. Best channel, worst channel.
For me,
My
it's direct
panels
mail.
are exhausted. They're like, God, what is it?
I like direct mail today.
All right, direct mail. Is you like, yeah.
Yeah, best channel I mentioned earlier, events for us, and worst was direct mail.
Yeah, I think events for even at Catalyst will be our best channel. Worst, I don't know, but I didn't like content just because I'm not a strong copywriter.
Can I caveat that actually though? Also,
Yes.
So when you say best channel, I think it's also really important to define for what, right? And one thing I don't think we talked a lot about was lead generation, right? Versus the metrics to measure demand generation success.
Yeah, there's a whole
right?
thing about lead
So for me,
generation.
for us, one of the surprising things was LinkedIn in terms of paid social, right? Amazing channel for leads. In terms of pipeline, horrible, right? And you might flip that on its head for another channel. And I think just back to the point of you need to be specific not only about your customer, but about your goals and pretty much everything in the mix to know what you're actually trying to achieve before you design the strategy and measure against that.
Awesome. So how many folks picked up at least one playbook page? How many picked up 2? Can we clap it up? Clap it up for these amazing panelists. Thank you so much, guys, for sharing your secret sauce that you've obviously worked towards for many years. So thank you so much for your generosity. And with that, we wrap up tonight's meetup. Please help us throw out trash on the way out. We have an awesome November meetup, November 20th. Stay tuned. More startup demos, more awesome enterprise folks. Thanks, everyone.
And not to take the last word from Orly, but we are hiring lots and lots of people in New York, San Francisco, Arizona, Tel Aviv. I want to leave
Plug,
here live,
plug,
and someone
plug.
from my HR team is here. So please come speak
Yes.
to me if you need a job.
Yes. And we got to ping you for that list of tools, Jonah. It's amazing.